So it was probably a year and a half or a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. We now have pre and post-COVID, maybe one day. And I saw this film, and Natasha and Pam were there, and I met them through that Zoom. And I was just so taken with this film. It just went right to my heart. And I knew I wanted to share it with others as often as I could. So it is such a thrill to have Pam and Natasha here to share this beautiful thing that they created together. And Pam is a member of the Winnemem Wintu tribe and the son of the current tribal chief, Colleen Sisk. He grew up going to his tribe's sacred places and has been dancing in the Winnemem way since he was 4 years old. He continues to protect sacred sites along the McCloud River. And Natasha, I love that she puts first, is a mother, filmmaker, and a teacher of nature practice. When she's not filming, Natasha is the host of Nature Practice Flow, an international online community of people committed to deepening their relationship with the earth. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Pam and Natasha, and we will all sit back and appreciate what they have to share. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Natasha Deganelo Shihodi, and I am talking to you today from Coast Miwok land, known as the Northern San Francisco Bay Area. And it has really been my privilege to work with Rua over the last few months in getting ready for this screening today. And we are just thrilled to share this space with you today. And as a way of sharing my appreciation with the people who have stewarded this land for so long, I would just like to say my thanks to the Coast Miwok people who for many generations stewarded and loved and took care of this land, and whose descendants continue to do this to this day. And I'm just so grateful for them and for Indigenous wisdom keepers around the world who are helping us come into better healing relationship with the earth.
Netoyet pom pahatot ni Winnemem Bos, netone kayaktis, netone pululimet, he chalabeskin olelbus, he chalabeskin, boyum puyuk, he chirachireki, Sawalmem, chalapol, he chalabeskin olelbus. My name is Michael Preston, is my English name. Pom Pahatot is my native Winnemem Wintu name. I'm also a member of the Susanville Indian Rancheria, Susanville, California, where I am a descendant of Paiute, Modoc, and Pit River peoples as well. I was raised in my mom's lineage, though, in the Winnemem Wintu tradition that comes from Mount Shasta, California. And I'm happy to be here with you all. I'm happy to share. We have a lot to share. We've been sharing for a while now. We have a presentation lined up for you all today to help us organize our thoughts and organize our messaging so that we can get it in a more succinct way to everybody, so it's easily more digestible, because there's a lot happening in the world. There's a lot that's already happened, and there's a lot predicted to happen. And so we want to do our best to remedy everything, you know, and make everything more smooth. And so that's all we're trying to do. That's why we made the film. And we will start our presentation off with our explanation on our film and what our plans are, and we will take Q&A afterwards. But grateful that everybody showed up. Thank you all for being here. Much love to everybody. I guess we're ready to go on all of this, but just wanted to say that and give our thanks and gratitude. So this is a picture of Mount Shasta, California, where we are born from. This is a 14,000 feet high mountain and volcano where we come from. And to help ground us, I want to sing a song from this area, from this place where we are venturing into the homelands of through this documentary. And it's a permission song, and it's just giving permission and asking for permission from. I'm also in Coast Miwok territory, which are relatives of ours. Who are also Penutian speakers, as we are in the language of the linguistics, protocols. But to offer up our thanks and goodness for this time that we're in. Like I said, I grew up. This is a picture of me and my mom. I grew up. This is a picture of us at Panther Springs and the Panther Meadows, where we are born from, and the ceremony that takes place annually, aligned up with the stars and the shooting stars that happen with the meteor showers. This is at Coonrod, and this is mostly my job. This is mostly what I do. Is I'm a singer, and I'm also a dancer, and this is the most important thing that I do. And the work that I feel I offer the most help in offering back to humanity and to my people and to the land. And the style of dance that you've seen right there, that is a roundhouse style of dancing, is what they call it, and or klute in our language, but English is called a roundhouse because the structure looks like a round house, and it's in the earth. And this picture right here is in Point Reyes, which is just up north from us, where a roundhouse also is at. And this is also where I met Natasha and where this journey of One Word Sawalmem actually began. And this is a picture of what inside of a roundhouse actually looks like. This is at Shasta Grinding Rock State Park, just outside of Sacramento, California. And this is a Miwok style roundhouse. As you can see, the dance floor is right there. And the picture before of us of us dancing is where we would dance at, right there at that fire, and offer up our prayers for many, many things.
This is a view from the apartment where I grew up in Caracas, Venezuela.
Oops, you're muted, Natasha.
Oh, yes. Is that better? Sorry about that. Yes. So I grew up in Caracas, Venezuela. This is a view from the apartment where I grew up, and you can see that I could see plenty of patches of rainforest that had not been taken over by the city. And I felt like I lived in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Even though I carried this sadness with me about the river, which flows completely through the city. And unfortunately, it's one of the filthiest disregarded rivers in the world. And I just could never understand why the adults seem to be disregarding it so much. My parents were very adventurous. They would often take us off-road and into the deep wilderness. And we would arrive to places like this to visit people who still lived on their ancestral lands. And one of the first lessons that I learned from Indigenous wisdom keepers as a child was that the river was our relative. And that just seemed to resonate so deeply with me that basically since then I have tried to stay close to Indigenous wisdom keepers whenever I had an opportunity. And now, as a mother to a teenage girl, I wanted to make sure to offer her some of the gifts that my parents had offered me, so that she could also have an opportunity to learn people who still remembered good ways of being in relationship with the earth. And so as a filmmaker, I started to explore this idea of co-directing a film with an Indigenous person. And I would ask one question. What is one word from your ancestral language which changed your life, and one word which you can offer to the next generation and to humanity to heal our relationship with the earth? And so when I met Pom and I told him about this idea, his immediate response was, "I know my word." And so that basically got us launched into this project. So in this presentation, we just wanted to give you a little bit of the backstory of why we made the film, why we think it's important. Basically, this film is about human wisdom, the wisdom that we as human beings have known for hundreds of thousands of years, which is how to live and how to thrive with this earth in good relationship. And, how to be kin to all of the other beings that we share this beautiful planet with. And one of the first jobs that I got as a documentary filmmaker in Venezuela was to make a film on the Yanomami people of the Amazon in Venezuela. And the way that they structured their home is very similar to the roundhouse that Pom was describing. And it symbolizes, the people, the earth, and in the middle, the connection with the cosmos and the connection with spirit. So there are many kind of through lines through this whole story of making this film between Pom and I.
So this is a arbor, which is a makeshift roundhouse in a sense that it kind of encapsulates spirit. It provides a space where you can direct energies towards the center of, and that's a fire at the middle. And it is kind of the same thing as the Pomon people, like then it goes up to the cosmos and goes up to the stars, and the spirit world is what the idea of this arbor is right here. And it's an ancient technology. It's an ancient wisdom that is ancient, is in all sense of the words. We say millions of years as how far back this thing goes, and it's humanity's most intimate understanding of the Earth's ecosystem, of course. And it's a living wisdom. It's ongoing into today, and it's not really written down, and it's not really documented. However, it lives and breathes inside of us and inside of all people, really. And it's extremely vital, of course, and it's this wisdom and this knowledge that indigenous people hold. It is only about 5% of us that are protecting this world. That's what makes up indigenous populations, and it's protecting 80% of the global biodiversity, according to the National Geographic. However, our sources indicate we are protecting 100% of the global biodiversity.
Sorry, Natasha.
Yeah, sorry about that. Somewhere along the way, we became distracted. And so we started to experiment with a different way of relating to the earth. Instead of relating as kinship, we started to experiment with what would it be like to relate to the world in a dominant, exploitative sort of way. And this is kind of the mainstream way of relating to the world today in our society. And this is directly responsible for violating all of the environmental ceilings that we understand to be important today. The way that we see it at the core of this problem is that we are spending too much time indoors. So for example, even though we know that being outside is really important for the development of children, today children are spending only 1 hour per day outdoors. This is less time than maximum security prison inmates. And it's not just children. In the United States, adults are spending 90 to 95% of their lives indoors. So basically we have imprisoned ourselves inside of our buildings, inside of our screens. We have severed this vital relationship with nature, and we have lost kind of the sense of kinship with the entire natural world. So the question becomes, how might we facilitate this transition, this vital transition right now, into a future where we go back into kinship with the earth, and which we can make possible this dream of regeneration that we have been speaking about, you know, in the summit over the last few days. And in order to do this, we have to be working at all levels: physical, yes; mental, yes; also emotional, and also spiritual. And this is really what our film is about. So the film was selected for more than 40 festivals in more than 15 different countries. It has won a number of awards. It was screened at the Smithsonian Museum. It is being currently broadcast on PBS. And we are so happy to share it with you today. For those of you watching the recording and not able to see the film right now, you have a 1-week access to watch the film through the link provided in the information about this session. You can also go to oneword.earth. So with that, I hope that you enjoy the film. Rua, are you, or is Galen going to be playing it from your end?
Yes, I'll go ahead.
Okay, perfect.
Well, that's the film. What do you guys think? We always welcome for feedback, always welcome for just any kind of questions that y'all might have. Please don't feel shy. We're ready to answer all of them. You know, whatever may come up for you. We're here to learn. We're here for learn from you, and share anything that we can to help out. Pretty much that's why I made this film, to help y'all out, help our situation out as well. But it's for everybody too. Just as an example for indigenous community, to be like, put ourselves out there. Just to put this out there real quick too, because not a lot of indigenous people put their films out there like that and allow the cameras into their ceremonial spaces. But we're a federally unrecognized tribe. That means we're not like most tribes, and that we have to take alternate means to get our word out there, because the federal government doesn't recognize us as a legit tribe. So we have to legitimize ourselves in a sense, at least according to if we want the federal government to respect us anyways, such as in the different branches, such as the United States Forest Service, Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Land Management, all those entities. Just real fast, just want to put that out there. But yeah, any questions though, not to get too political. Oh yes, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. Just feel free to jump in. I'm not really, I can't really read the chats that are right now, but I'm just kind of talking. So if anybody could help me out with what's being, Natasha maybe.
Pom, I can see so much love pouring out to the two of you in appreciation for this, and for helping to see water as sacred, and then embracing that. It's a new way of thinking about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Rua. And yes, if you have questions, if you can put them in the chat, we'd be happy to take them. Bonnie, hi Bonnie. Bunny is asking, can you talk about the salmon run? Will it take place next year and when?
The salmon run is a part of let's see, a bigger prayer that we had for the water that came out in about 2008, but also was for the fire. And it was something that was in alignment with what we needed to do and talk on behalf of the salmon, because it's a long story, but they basically, in our creation stories, they gave us our voices, and they gave us as a gift, because they basically kind of felt sorry for humans, and that humans needed another alternate way to communicate, so that they could speak up for the land more better. So that was a part of our prophecy, and then we remembered that, and so that we always were therefore taking the responsibility to talk on behalf of the salmon. So that's how the salmon came about. But the salmon are getting nearer and nearer to the endangered species list, and we don't want that to happen, because that's one of the most nutritious foods you can ever eat on the whole entire West Coast, but not only in the West Coast, but all in the United States. They're in Japan, they're in New Zealand now, they're in Russia, they're in different places in the world, and we don't want the salmon to disappear. We don't want them being taken over by, farm fish, because as we all know, all studies are indicating that that's not the most healthiest food that you should be eating. We want the healthiest foods for us and for the land and everything and everybody. So that's roundabout way what the salmon run percent is about, and it's taking place. Yes, next year it is taking place.
Sometime in the summer, usually the date usually gets announced closer to the event. Yeah, EP is saying the movie helped me see how the water is sacred, which is not a word I would use normally. If life is sacred and water is alive, then it is sacred. Thank you for explaining. I wanted to say that when we started working on the film, it was 2019. Which was the UNESCO Year of Indigenous Languages. At the end of the year, they decided that this was such an important theme that they extended the year to an entire decade. So starting in 2022, it will be the UNESCO Decade of Indigenous Languages. Part of the reason for this, one of the main reasons for this, is because what we know today as Indigenous wisdom, which is humanity's most intimate understanding of how to be in good relationship with the earth, that wisdom is contained within these words, many of which are no longer translatable into our modern languages. So sacred is not usually a term you would use for water, because we have lost that word or that concept in our modern language. All of the Indigenous people that I have spoken to and I have asked about, this word, they have all said that they have word for sacred language, for sacred water in their languages. The Quechua people of the Andes have requested us to dub this film in Quechua, which we have done. And they have several words for sacred water. We were also in conversation with some Indigenous Tibetan people, and they were, it was a beautiful conversation between them and Pom, and they were trying to ask Pom exactly what type of sacred water Sawalmem refers to, because in Tibetan, there are 9 variations of sacred water. Yes, and so this really speaks to the importance of preserving Indigenous languages. It's not just about having 7,000 ways of saying banana. It's really about preserving our most important treasures of human beings. So thank you for raising that point. Did you want to say anything else about that, Pom?
A lot to be said about it. I always, because sacred is it's a word from the church, right? It's an English word. We're using the English language here, and it doesn't translate. A lot of it gets lost in translation. One of the things, but holy water, for example, the same concept. is you can use water to basically cleanse yourself. We do that every day, just about. We need it to sustain ourselves, and everything that's alive does too. So it's not a strange concept. If you ask us the where it goes in depth, though, is Sawalmem refers to the ancient waters, the beginning waters that created everything. That's what that word goes back to, not just the word, like, and it calls it into the now so that it's not lost. That's what Solomon is referring to, the ancient waters, and calling them into the now.
Yes. There was a question about how long it took us to make the film, and when we started. I lost the question in the chat, but I think that's what it was. How long did it take you to make it? And yeah, and when did you start? So it's such an interesting question because, you know, we talk about the beginning of that film, that day that we met at the Roundhouse. And, you know, I just felt called to go share this idea. That's all I was doing. I was sharing an idea for Pom, and I was just so surprised when he replied, "I know my word." And I just felt like, oh my goodness, it's going from this idea into like, this is happening. So you can say that was the beginning. That was 2019 at the Geography of Hope conference where we met. But actually, when you look a little bit deeper into that question, like there was something happening in Pom's life that made it so that he so easily said yes in that moment. And there had been also things happening in my life to bring this idea into. So it's not very clear when it started. The other thing that's not clear is when it was finished. We thought that, you know, this was going to be a film and we're going to film it, maybe do a year of festival run, which is like typical trajectory of the film. But the film came out a year and a half ago already. And actually, in many ways, we feel like this is it's the life of the film is just getting started. We have received so much love and so much support and so much engagement with the audience. And actually, we're very curious about what the relationship between the film and the whole transition community is, because Pom and I have felt very connected to the group here. And yeah, so we don't know when it began, we don't know where it's going to end, but we're really enjoying the whole journey. Andrew is asking, what can we all learn from your people and Indigenous cultures in general about climate resilience?
Well, what we have to offer is basically ceremonial ways of being and relating to water, but not only water, but also the wind, Mother Earth, and also fire. It sounds cliche because again, we're speaking English here, and so it's always shifting. So we have to like upgrade our terminologies for all of these things. But that's basically what it says, to get cut to the chase, and what those really are representing to people who have intuitive abilities and, lack of a better word and phrase, psychic abilities, insights into spiritual realms that most people will never get to. It takes practice and dedication and years of discipline to reach these things. Some people are born with them. We're all born with them, but some people are born with them even more so. And relating to these things, the kids nowadays, they're being predicted to be born more and more with these the gifts and abilities. So we're focused on the kids right now to help them. We want to be focused on them to help them integrate their abilities, because in these abilities, what they say is just like, it's like I don't want to say it's just like in the movies, but like the movies indicate that they like kind of give like hints into true human potential. one of them is that we have abilities to travel and astral project. And if you're strong enough and you're not like, I was going to say dumbed down enough, because we're all like that, born in this society. We're culturated. We're very brainwashed into believing that we can't influence things such as weather patterns, such as water molecules, molecular structures, such as seeing into fires and coming back with prophecy, basically. And if we're able to do that, that's how we've always maintained the climate. That's how we've always maintained the grounds, and knew that it was always interconnected, interrelated with the cosmological order and makeup, cosmogenealogical order and makeup of natural law, basically, and guiding our principles according to this, and expanding our science to upgrade itself to how molecules really, really for real interact with one another, how the spirit world, which cannot be explained, really interacts with one another. And I'll use this as an example for science's limitations of what I'm trying to talk about here. Water. Science cannot explain why water exists in 3 states: gaseous, solid, and liquid. So there's an extreme limitation in that, just understanding water. And so there's lots of things that to be said about climate resilience in that regard. And that's why we do our ceremonies, and that's why we do these things in our way. Like, I'm just gonna say, like, in our way, if we're loud enough, and if we're one enough, and we're unified enough, and we're able to like come together without this doubt and without interfighting and about I'm different than you and you're different than me and like all of that stuff, right? And we're able to actually unify to one another and form an energetic frequency. That's really how you can have rains come in, and the science of song and dance and being organized about it can really happen. And that's why we do these things. That's really why we do these things. We try to put it in context that's more easily digestible. But that's really for real why we do this work, is to satisfy and to show the spirits that we didn't forget about it, and we are attempting to spread the knowledge and wisdom to the other people, so that when we pass away, nobody can say that we didn't do our work to try to share it. That's how we see about climate resilience. But if we get into more scientific, more mainstream approaches to it, we need to take down the dams. We need to bring back the salmon returns. We need to bring back all the animals, all the ecosystems. We need to bring back the beavers to restore all of the marshlands. And we need to restore the environment basically to its homeostasis state. And that's easier said than done. It sounds really easy compared to what I just talked about, but that's what we really need to do.
Just a small observation to build on what Pom just said. I also see a relationship between kind of intuitive intelligence and relationship with the earth. So what has happened is that as we have come indoors, as we shared in the presentation, right now in the United States, people are spending 90 to 95% of their entire lives indoors. What's happening is that we are numbing our senses, right? Because indoors, we don't really need our eyesight anymore, other than to see the screen or to whoever's speaking with us. Same for our hearing. We only need to hear what's in our earbuds or whoever's speaking with us. Indoors, we never want to feel too hot or too cold. We basically don't want to feel anything on our skin. We certainly don't want to be smelling anything indoors, right? So what's happening is that we are numbing all of our physical senses. And in doing so, we are also blocking our intuitive intelligence. And we have like overdeveloped our rational intelligence. But our rational intelligence is only one wing. And so we're kind of like flying around with one wing. And really one of the great things that Indigenous wisdom keepers have to share with us and have to show us about our own potential and our own possibility is to awaken those senses and open up our receptivity for stronger intuition, especially when it comes to how to be in good relationship with the earth, how to be resilient in the face of so much suffering and damage that we have caused, and how to get one of the basic things of getting our way out of this whole mess is restoring our relationship with nature. That means we need to get outside and be prioritizing this, not only on vacation time, not only on weekends, but understanding that this is our job as human beings to be in good relationship with the earth in this way. And that's why many environmental groups, many of the biggest environmental groups, and also the climate scientists at the United Nations are now prioritizing the support of Indigenous wisdom keepers, are now championing the idea that Indigenous wisdom keepers should be invited at the table in important decision-making places with all decisions that have to do especially with the earth and with recovery and with regeneration.
Real quick, Andrew says, can we learn with you, or do we need to learn on our own? It's both, and like this is our offering up, to you all, to our kids, to everyone, to the land, to the water, to the salmon, at the because it's a pretty big situation for me to step into and to put myself out there for everybody to see me and to put my heart out there basically, and to be whatever about whatever energies come towards me, and to maneuver myself around it. It's okay though, because it's an offering for everybody here, and that we're all learning for this, and we hope to gain everybody's support, right? And then also to help people remember about sacred place wherever you're at, and to regard it as that, and also the water. And if sacred is a weird word to use a special place, use an empowering place, use a whatever word you want to use that makes the place bigger than what it is right now, because it holds a healing capacity. And that's being confirmed by psychology, and I get a little out of whack that I have to kind of back up my statement sometimes with Western science, but it is being used by the therapy community as far as nature is concerned. And so we realize just how special and alive that those places are, because they're disappearing, and it's getting pretty serious right now. There's a mass extinction going on right now, for example. There is ecocide, and nothing less of that word that's happening right now before our eyes. And it's kind of getting scary, honestly speaking. Let's not downplay the situation anymore, because you can't really survive on the land anymore. And that's our whole goal. The reason why we don't want the salmon to disappear is because it's food for us. It's soul food first of all, but it's the healthiest food we could eat, and it's free. And if there's no longer anything there, our fires are burning up everything as well. You can't survive off the land anymore. Therefore, we're going to be dependent on Safeway, and we don't want to be dependent on Walmart and Food Max and even any of the health food stores. We don't want to be dependent on them. We want to be self-sustainable. And so this is just a reminder for that as well. And to wrap it up, back to the fire situation, it really is getting very serious right here. I just got evacuated from a fire in my homelands. California had just experienced the biggest fire in its history just a couple months ago, in the Dixie Fire. And our grams, I grew up with these prophecies saying that was always going to come in, and to get ready for them. And this is how you stop them. And we were always told that in order to stop those things, we're supposed to dance and pray. We're supposed to continue with our ceremonies and never stop doing them, no matter what anybody says, no matter what people think about us. We continue to do them forever, because we know that that's how you stop these things. and we have to elevate it, and we always have to be in tune with these things, and we're supposed to. And right now we're being asked to elevate this, and so that's why I'm here. That's why I put myself out there. That's why I put myself to on up to that fire. You know, I'm right there, and we're working to rebalance them, and we see this work as helping to rebalance it, and so we invite you to be a part of that with us in that sense, and even more so than that. And we continue building relationships through that way, though. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Lynn is asking if you can share the film with your networks. Yes, please do. It would be a huge favor for us if you can share with your networks, with your communities, with your places of work, with your schools. November is Native American Heritage Month. And so a lot of people like to attach their screenings to that event. You can use the website oneword.earth, www.oneword.earth. And you'll also be getting a link from the organizers of the summit that you can use as well. I'll just put it here. There's a question of how we can support the tribe now, but maybe before we get to that, there's also several questions about being curious about an update on the dam, what's going on with the dam. Yeah, if you would like to talk about that.
The sort of lot of history, right, since the 40s. The dam, though, has not really changed since the 40s. Every president, every governor has been in support of Shasta Dam. We first learned about Shasta Dam raise in probably the year 2002, 2003 maybe. So they've been trying to raise it since then, and we've been actively a thorn in their side, bureaucratic side, in stopping this dam raise and stating that y'all aren't listening to your own law and following 100%, because within that law would give us a reservation or like land to live on, which they flooded us out on. That's in federal Central Valley Project, is what it is. Central Valley Indian Acquisition Act. This is all federal. You know what I mean? So they're trying to raise this thing further, and they are actively trying to. Well, Governor Newsom, I don't know where everybody's from, but Governor Gavin Newsom is where we're at in California. Trump is in support of the dam raise, and Biden is also business as usual for the Shasta Dam raise to provide more water for the Central Valley, agricultural, monocultural crops, right? Big money, basically. Big money to sell the water, big money to grow the crops. And by the way, none of those crops are free. They're not giving those out for free. You got to pay for those crops if you want. And that's why they're not going to, they don't want to take the dam down. And so, but with what they are doing though, is building a fish, we're trying to build a fish passageway. This is a whole different story and topic here, but we are trying to build a fish hatchery, a passageway around the Shasta Dam, and NOAA Fisheries is helping us hopefully with that part. They're trying to truck and haul. We're trying to say no to truck and haul and build a fish passageway, but they're trying to restore the salmon above the dam. And this will be the first time that NOAA Fisheries has ever done something like this. It's a pilot project, and so we are involved with that. And so that's good news. But however, they want to use the hatchery salmon to do this, and a lot of people don't see that. They don't see that as an issue. We want wild salmon to be growing up there, and also from New Zealand, which they transported in the early 1900s. They transported McLeod River salmon to New Zealand in the early 1900s, and now we're trying to get them back up our river. Long story, we're trying to get those back up our river right now, and so we're working with NOAA Fisheries to do this, and the Forest Service to do this, and the Bureau of Reclamation pulled out. There's all this bureaucratic, and it's always shifting and changing. It's always like closed doors over here, and we have to knock on that door to get more information over here. And there's this weird science war that's happening. Their scientists versus our scientists, and which science is right and which science is going to win out. How much money does this science have? How much money does this science have? Is it kind of an indicator which one's going to have more resource and accessibility to their word getting out there? But there's that aspect as well. So it's, so it's a complicated political world we live in here in that regard. But it's all out there and documented.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, there was a question of how you might. Oh, stop. Sure. There was a question about how you might support the tribe and kind of support these efforts, and so today we're really happy to kind of use this opportunity of this screening to extend a really special invitation. It's been kind of a very beautiful journey. We told you that we met at that roundhouse, on those lands of that roundhouse. And from the time we started making the film, Pom was always sharing a dream. I want to build a roundhouse. I want to build a roundhouse so that we have a ceremonial. Do you think you might just press on the off button there, please? Sorry. Sorry, we just have a little bit of noise. So he was speaking about this dream of building a roundhouse so that there could be a physical center for 200 or 300 people at one time to be in ceremony and to basically be there for the earth. One time he expressed it to me like this. He said, the earth, it's just like when you're sick, and if somebody is there with you, expressing their wishes that you feel better and just accompanying you through the illness, it makes a huge difference. It actually supports your healing and helps you get better. Instead of you being sick and everybody ignoring you, it just makes you feel worse, and it actually makes you feel sicker. So the way that Pom explained to me the importance of the roundhouse, it's kind of like our way of being present with the earth, of showing her that we are still here, that we still care, and supporting her healing in this way. So this has been 2 years of sharing this dream. And today, for the very first time, Pom has expressed that he is ready to invite the audience of Word Sawalmem to help him in fulfilling this dream. So this is the first time we're sharing this news. This is the very first time that we are extending this invitation. I was telling Rua and Galen earlier that we just felt a very special connection with the transition family. I don't know how many of you were in the opening ceremony, but the offering that Pom made during the offering ceremony was the first time he has ever made something like this. Even though we've had so many screenings, many dozens of screenings around the world in the last year and a half. So yes, I will get up some pictures to show you kind of what the idea is, and maybe Pom can share a little bit more about it.
Yeah, this is always been a task for me. Thank you for holding space and helping me navigate this space with you all. So a flute is a relatively new concept for us as tribal people. It came around in the 1870s, and it was in response. It's basically a form of the quote unquote anthropological term. Get that clear? Anthropology, ghost dance, but it was a version from California. And these structures were made to provide a safe space for ceremonial ways to continue on, and also it was a way to like protection of protection, but it was also a response to waters and the situation with the fires. Like they were going to be providing a space for those prayers in particular, because they knew that some things were coming. Because if people weren't going to get right, if people were going to continue to violate sacred space, if people were going to continue to violate the animal kingdom and like everything that makes bad karma. If people were going to keep doing that, that's why they said the fires were going to come. That's why they said the waters were going to come. So that's why they built these structures. And so this is why this is basically still continuing on today with the wildfires that has happened, that just passed. And the drought is also the same thing we're talking about. We're also hoping that the volcanoes aren't not next, and that the earthquakes are not next, and also the natural catastrophes. To not to get too deep into it, this is kind of what this house is designed to hold space for, and that's the highest prayers. But also, this is also a way to heal us as individuals, and it's made in sacred geometry and with specific prayers for each of these things. So this is a picture of Shasta outside of Sacramento, California. And this is what a roundhouse is, basically. This is what we're building right now. This is how we're going to pass on everything to our kids. And also, this is not just a Winnemem Wintu thing. Wintu just means a human thing. Wintu just means human. And so anybody who is spiritually minded and spiritually gifted, of like heart, and leading their life like that, is invited to this space. And this is what we started building a couple years ago. And this is what we have. This is what we started. This is what we have so far. We just have the hole in the ground. It's a semi-subterranean place. And we need to build the structure up just exactly what it looked like in the picture. And then it has a very big ceremony component as far as regalia making is concerned too. And so it's a prayer for the world. It's a space for people to go and heal at. And we're not supposed to turn our doors, close our doors to people too. And so it's a place in Northern California of refuge for not only Wintu people, but people who are needing that kind of support. And they told us that more and more people will probably be needing that. And we didn't know the pandemic was going to happen. But since that happened, that's indicating that more and more people probably are going to be needing spaces like this. And we're just kind of taking that cue and doing our job doing my job as a dancer to help transmute some of those energies and some of those sicknesses. That's what our job is. And so this house will help us transmute those sicknesses, basically. That's what a roundhouse really is, and what the real function is to transmute sickness, so that we can continue on, This is my younger cousin right here, passing it on to our younger cousins and their kids, and so that they will know how to take care of their hearts, take care of their spirits and minds, and continue it on, and then to save it, not only just for us, but this is for the human, the people, this is for the humans, as they call it, not just for us. And that's what we're up to these days, and that's our newest endeavor. And we just wanted to say thank you to you all for listening to us and listening to our spiel. There's a lot more to say, and if anybody wants to talk more about this, definitely open to it. And let us know.
Yeah, so if you would like to be one of the very first people to support this effort and to make Pom's dream come true, we just published right before this call, we published the information on oneword.earth. And you will see it right underneath the film. It's kind of like what are our next steps. And so this is really our next step. It's an invitation to participate in the healing. It's an invitation to and we're only extending this invitation to people who watched the film and who felt moved by the film and who felt called to continue to be a part of this story. And so if that's you, you can find out more about it at the website that I just put up there, one-word, .earth. And Galen had made a comment in the chat about how the chat is so alive that I have to go back and say, but he was saying that Pom pointed out that a very large portion of the nitrogen nutrient that feeds the forest through eagles and bears, if salmon disappear, the entire ecosystems die off. Yes, and so there's this physical interconnection between all beings and all of life. There's also mental interconnection, there's an emotional interconnection, there's a spiritual interconnection, and sometimes we don't quite have an understanding of what that is. But the people who have maintained that connection against so many odds, generation after generation after generation, are here with us and are willing to guide us back into that space. And this is the first time in more than 100 years that the Winnemem Wintu build a roundhouse, and it's definitely the first time that people outside of the tribe are invited to participate. So to me, it's like so extraordinarily moving and exciting, and it's just such a, you know, coming from the film world, which is like this ethereal world, and then like making it concrete into this roundhouse and have that be a physical expression of our interconnection is just deeply satisfying for me. So I just want to thank you all so much for being such a beautiful audience and for being with us and like holding space for this invitation to be made for the first time in this. So we have 30 more minutes, so we're not going anywhere. I'm just looking for more questions. And actually, I would just like to invite you to unmute if you would like, so that we can hear from other people as well. We would love that if you would just like to do it, or raise your virtual hand in the reactions. Sarah, do I see you wanting to speak? Yeah, go ahead.
I unmuted. Just want to thank you both, and Pom, the love you have for creation flows so abundantly from your visage, you know, on the screen, and so thank you for that as well. I was just going to say a few words about being more connected to nature in the suburbs, and just maybe get your comments, or just to throw it out there. You know, I like to walk when I have time, and I stop to greet the tree, a tree along the way, and I put my hand on the tree and say hello. And I know I've learned more recently I'm greeting not only that tree, but the trees around. And I'm quite conscious at the same time of the people driving by and saying, look at that, you know, hippie chick or whatever. And I just want, so sharing that, you know, I'm willing to violate the norms of Western culture, whatever we want to call it. But I think there is a lot of fear, and I think you both are aware of this, of being seen as other by a large percentage of the inhabitants, at least of the suburbs. I live in New Jersey, and it's quite suburban, quite dense, and a lot of cars going around very quickly on small roads. Sorry, I won't go on at length. We have only 30 more minutes, but I just want to share my voice and thank you for your love, and share that experience, and maybe a comment about how to empower, and I don't mean to arrogate to myself, oh, these folks need to be more courageous, but that is my opinion. And so how do we help people to be more courageous? If you think that's a good goal. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. I agree. People need to be more courageous. So putting ourselves out there, I can only explain that from my perspective on how I give myself that little encouragement. I have to do that before every Zoom call, by the way, that I go to. I have to be like, all right, we're ready. We have to do this. Okay. I have to do this. There's no choice not to do this. And I just know that I have to. And that's my purpose and my divine calling is lined up with this. The roundhouse is my divine calling that I must talk about. And like, so in order, sometimes I have to sing songs, sometimes I have to chant, sometimes I have to exercise, sometimes I just do everything that makes me feel good and that makes me and a more balanced individual and my strength within my spirit, you know, and like that's basically what it is. And that gives me the strength and courage to like go up to these offices that are completely science related and to be like, yes, traditional ecological knowledge, it has a place in here, and so does song and dance, and so do these, and the salmon are listening to that and say that knowing full well that they do not believe that whatsoever. But saying that anyways and being like, I know you don't believe that, we could talk science but all day and long, but that's boring to me and I'm tired of the same old I have an advantage in this because I'm already born other. My whole life I've been other, and so it's no surprise I was born outside of it anyways. I've infiltrated it by going to university and validated my word and showing that I can do the work that tries to invalidate my way of life and my worldview. I can go into that space and try to validate my worldview in that top-notch university system that is a gatekeeper, right? And it's the same thing. You have to butt heads with those people too, or not, and decide if it's worth it or not. But the times right now are pretty serious, right? There's not much time anymore for half truths. So just speak the truth wherever you go, you know. And then that's an inside work right there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But and maybe this is not correct, but to empower others to be more courageous. I feel like I want to see others being more courageous. Do you feel like that's an appropriate or a correct goal?
I think so. I don't know even how to do that. The only way I know how to do that is to be that example. Because I ask people how to do that. How do you do that? And they're like, how do you do this? How do you get people to like get on board with the roundhouse? How do you get people to believe in dancing? And they're like, well, you have to do it yourself. That's always been my answer I get back. You have to do it yourself and embody it yourself. I'm like, all right. And that's all I got.
I just wanted to add a little bit to that. The other day I was at the spring where I get my water. I'm very lucky to have a spring close by. And I was just sitting there. I was actually, doing my meditation there, but it didn't really look like anything. I was just sitting there and people came and went. And at one time this woman came and she said, and as she was leaving, she said, thank you to me. She said, thank you. I'm like, oh, don't thank me, thank the mountain, for this water. I don't have anything to do with it. And she turned around and she walked back to me and she like looked into my eyes. She's like, no, I meant thank you for the prayers. And I was like, wow, that was just so beautiful, like that she noticed, that she acknowledged, and maybe she got the idea that next time she wants to sit by the spring, offer her prayers for everybody. My experience is the more you do it, the more people become courageous to like align their thoughts and their words and their actions to what is good for the earth. The other thing I would say is that if you have more experience outdoors and you have more experience kind of connecting with nature in a special way, to kind of take it one step further and like narrate that experience for others. It seems a little silly because it's so personal and it's so like natural. Like, why would you narrate it? It's just your own life. But actually, for people who spend their life indoors, that narration can make all the difference to remind them, hey, you know what? Life is really outdoors. We are part of this planet and can be like a little encouragement, like Yesterday, I decided to do my little part and set up a host your own session that Galen was making available. And it's to talk about this, how can we deepen our relationship with the earth? And, that's just a way of like sharing my love of nature, my practices with others who might, be inclined to learn a little bit more.
When is that, Natasha? Your host your own session. Did that happen already? Or when is that? Thank you.
That's actually going to be on Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific. And I think if you go, I don't know, Galen, can you explain exactly how you get there? I'm not really sure where you see them.
Yeah, so I'll put a link in the chat, and thank you for bringing it up. We'd love people to know about the Host Your Own calendar. And if you go to the Discovery page, you'll find a post with information about it and a link to it. And it's there for people to post their own events, and it's there for people to browse and look at all the wonderful offerings that participants are offering.
Thank you for that. Who else would like to have their voice heard? Christy, yes, Christy, please, with their beautiful planet behind you. Thank you for bringing the mama forward in this way.
Thank you. Thank you both for bringing your film and your vision and your culture, just bringing this experience to your time. And I live in Northern California. I live on ancestral Wiyot territory in Humboldt County. I'm very interested in the removal of the dam, the Klamath Dam in particular, but also in the harmful effects of industrial agriculture. I am coming from both a spiritual and a science end. I feel a very spiritual connection to nature, and I have since I was a child. I relate to praying in nature and hugging trees, but I also have gone to college first as an undergraduate, and now I'm in grad school, approaching it from the science end as well, because I'm just looking for some way to help and something to make the world a better place. But I don't mean to go on and on. I'm very interested in water and in decolonization and indigenous food sovereignty. And I hope this isn't disrespectful, but I was in Alaska over the summer and I posted about this in the chat, and I was just amazed by how many salmon they have there, and how there's still such a presence of especially the Tlingit people there and their stories and their history in the form of totems. But there's also no industrial agriculture there. There never has been, because it was never convenient for the people who came to colonize that land. And they have so many salmon, but there used to be the fish canneries there. So they do have a hatchery, but from what I understand, their way of doing the hatchery is very different than what most people think of in terms of it being detrimental and harmful. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert on fish hatcheries or anything, but Palm, I think, mentioned this earlier in the conversation about the hatcheries, and I'm just interested in if their way of doing things is somehow more natural, if it's better for the salmon, if it's better for the ecosystem. So that's just kind of what I'm putting out there. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I think it is, like not necessarily to say like all the salmon hatcheries are bad either. Because like we want to put a hatchery up there too. That's kind of what we need to do in order to bring back the salmon in the first place, because they're so far gone. Like we need a place for them to be birthed at and to protect them, and but like not the big industrial ones that they have. And it depends on which fish really that they're trying to use, because that's where they mess things up. That's where they're trying to mess things up for us. Like they want to use the hatchery, which we're cool with, but they want to use the fish from a hatchery that is not from this river, and we want to use the correct river fish that is from this place, and so they sometimes mess things up in that sense. And then and then there's the horror stories that a lot of people hear about are the ones that are out there in the river, out there in the oceans, and where the fish hatcheries are just like polluted with fish, and they get all kinds of diseases, and they don't allow them upriver. They make them stop right there at that one place, and they all die in one spot. And that's why the fish hatcheries are bad, because they don't let them do their real migratory routes, and they just make them stop at the dam. And we're like, not impressed, fish hatcheries, like let them go past the dams, because 70% of the habitat is cut off in California. And none of the salmon are basically allowed to go up into the high mountain country where they're needed most. That's where all the nutrients are needed from the ocean. It's up in the high country, and it kind of trickles down from there. All the sediment from those fish hatchery, fish that are there. But yeah, Alaska. That's basically though. Going back to your point about the industrial ag. California is like the worst place for industrial ag. Look it up. It's like there's all kinds of studies that are out there that say California is the most hydrologically altered body of land mass in the world. All the marshes are gone. There's over 1,000 dams in California, all for industrial ag, and most of that is exported out of the United States. And so how long are we going to continue to destroy our environment at the expense of all of life, for money gains? So that's our huge issue with industrial ag, because are y'all getting paid off industrial ag? Anybody here? Anybody? Y'all got shares in the industrial ag business? I would vote to say like there's more lucrative. Well, maybe not, because it's water. That's the big thing right now, and only predicted that stock is only predicted to rise. And so us, the people, we really gotta be aware of that. Not to mention how ag uses water. Let's not even go there on how much water is wasted in that. So there's a lot, there's a lot. We're in the political realm as well all the time. That's where most people are. The reason why we wanted to get into the spiritual realm and make a film about it is because nobody ever made one about it. Nobody ever talks about spirit. Politics all day. There's plenty of documentaries about that. And we wanted to be like, yeah, we can talk politics. We can go there. We can go, and all day actually. But there's this other side about it. There's also the reason why we go into these spaces is for spiritual reasons. Though we're forced into politics, and we go there confidently because we feel like the spirit's got our back, and we're going to continue on. Something like that, I went off on a tangent, but all of that,
One of the great pleasures that we have had during this screening is to screen to many scientists and mathematicians and intellectuals and professors. And it has been so beautiful. And many of the screenings have been slow and long, like this one, 2 hours, giving us enough time to be in good conversation with each other. And we have received so many comments from them, thanking us for creating a space for them to discuss the spiritual, because in the workspace, it's not appropriate for a science to discuss the spiritual. And every scientist that I know has a very strong spiritual life, because of course, the more you pay attention to the world, the more you fall in love with it, the more you run out of words to express your love for the earth, the more that turns into sacredness. And so I think that inviting the scientists to speak, in all of their levels, mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually, it's important for us to feel whole as human beings. Galen.
Yeah, on that note, there's some things I've been holding in mind over here that I'd love to share. So I come from a very strong scientific background, studied mathematics and physics and biology and ecology. And I just want to offer that that the science that is offering resistance is not my science. That the science that is denying the living aspects of water and the rest of the natural world is not my science. That on what I see as the leading edge of Western science, as it's just barely beginning to mature into a much more wise worldview. I've studied things such as chaos theory and complexity science and information theory. So just real quickly, a part of my worldview is that through the scientific endeavor, we've started to understand, partly through Einstein's teachings, energy and matter are interchangeable. And now we're entering into a realm where we're starting to understand that energy and matter and information are all interchangeable. And while no part of me believes that this aspect of the endeavor of understanding will ever be able to encompass everything that we're trying to acknowledge here, but I do believe that we're becoming more and more mature in our ability to bridge the gaps. And what's emerging out of this worldview, my understanding of this worldview, this scientific worldview, is that information is alive, and information flows through water. That water is not just a random collection of water molecules, and there's very sophisticated studies showing this, that we can reassemble information. People have done this with genetic material, put genetic material in water and then distill the sample down until there's no longer any genetic material in it. And then we can recover the information from that genetic material just from the pattern formation in the water molecules. And this is something that we're starting to be able to understand on a much more scientific level as well. And so I just wanted to offer that.
Thank you. Yes, it completely validates why we sing our songs into the water, the high doctoring songs into the water, the highest prayers into the water that we have. Whole ceremonies dedicated for it, so that it's infused. And that's the purpose, the divine purpose, to literally infuse it with the sacred, so that we are drinking sacred water over and over again. Literally. And science is, that's what we're saying, like, yes, science. Thank you, Dr. Emoto from Japan. Thank you to all these non-Western scientists. A lot of these scientists aren't from the Western world. A lot of them from Russia, from China, from Japan, from Norway, Sweden, a lot of these different places that aren't, you know what I mean, like influenced by Nature magazine, you know, and like validating a lot of this stuff we're talking about. And thank you for validating us right here, Mr. Galen. Appreciate that. Words of wisdom.
I'd like to validate too, with a really grateful heart for everything here today. I'm also from a traditional science background that's been on the spiritual path for a long time, doing deep ceremony. And I can attest there are a lot of non-dual new scientists here in the US too. And it's just wonderful. It just brings me a lot of joy to be weaving those paths together, because there are different perspectives on the same, you know, truth, right? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all too. And you all have your own traditions too, and own songs, all of that, you know, all the ancient stuff too, and your own lineages that we need you all to bring out as well. I'm just a representative from Mount Shasta and my tribal people that were born from that place in that area of the world. That's all I know about, can represent. That's where our songs are from, but that's just one little place. There's all kinds of these songs that have those abilities to enter into that realm we're all talking about here, from every corner of the world. and we all need to. Yeah, but I'll just say it, we all need to uncover them. That's why indigenous cultures are important right now in this moment in time. I don't know if even indigenous is the right word. Just ancient human, the human true truths that were universal.
Not to speak again if someone else would like to speak, but there is the power in acknowledgement, in direct conscious engagement of things that we consider that are not, we don't normally consider able to hear us, like the trees or the water. And I think there's great power in that. That is where there's an activation of the information, or that the direct acknowledgement. And when driving, I do greet the bodies of water that I drive over, and to add to that communication project that I mentioned.
Galen, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I actually wanted to follow up what Pam just said with a question, because I'm resonating with the need to call forth the songs from the heart and soul of the diversity of human cultures that have been born out of Earth. And I was also following in the chat where there's the question of cultural appropriation has come up. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that. You know, how do we find that healthy line or that balance between the two, or how do you see that?
Oh man, yep, that's a big one right there. That's especially in the different communities out here. And like, I mean, I shared our song, right? I shared our song in that documentary, and if people were really wanted to learn it, they could probably learn it. They don't know that exact wording, what they really mean. They probably won't be able to pronounce them, or where the words end and start. So there's that. And it takes a little bit of practice to learn those songs. But if somebody really wanted to learn, they probably could. And I was faced with this question of whether or not to share that with everybody intentionally and be like, hey, if you don't have a song that's from the old ways, here, sing this one. We need you to sing it. If you don't have any, go ahead. Like there's been many people that's happened for. And so our Grams used to invite the public out to our ceremonies, and anybody who wanted to come was welcome, because she wanted everybody to know about what she was talking about, and how to like be in proper alignment and balance, right? And so we're kind of faced with that question again. And man, it's a tough one, because indigenous people were like, nope, nothing, we're all of this is ours. This is ours, and they have the right to do that, because a lot of it has been. Some people are like, oh, you know, I'm going to take that song, I'm going to go make some money off of it. Actually, I'm going to go lead my own spiritual retreats, and I'm going to conduct sweat lodge, and it's going to cost $75 to attend, and this and that, right? So there's that. So they're like, nah, we're not going to even take that chance. And so, but it's getting kind of crazy though. In my opinion, you know, I can only speak for myself that I know that if you sang one of our songs to this water right out here when we're in the Bay Area, and your heart was really into it, the water and every spirit knows if there's a lie in your heart, if you're lying about it, and if you're not really doing it. Like it would say, like you're doing it out of ego or something. But if you were really true, like, you know what I mean, like really there with it, you really could sing that song, and it would be okay. But you kind of have to pass the like spiritual, the I don't know what to call it, like a test or something. And I have to pass it every time I sing my own self, you know. And so it's what's in your heart really, and I know that it can work, because we have people who are not of our lineage that believe, that are dancers with us, and that sing our songs, and that believe in our way of life, and they're not Winnemem Wintu. We have two Japanese people who are with us, and they can sing those songs because they believe in it. And so I know that you can do that, but you have to get permission, and it has to be in alignment with the people that can bestow that to you. But it can work though, 100%.
And I know that Rua wants to start closing us off here, or not yet. Okay, but I just one other thing. There's a lot of comments in the chat, like, what do I do if I forgot my song? What if I don't? If like the lineage has been interrupted of my own ancestral lineage, and I don't know my songs anymore. One thing that I can encourage you is also to coming back to the senses and going outside, awaken your senses, go outside and open your receptivity to the intuitive messages that nature has for you, and ask for guidance. Ask for guidance. How can I find my way back to my ancestral songs? And I really encourage you to follow that thread, which is an important thread for healing of our own ancestral lineages, right? That especially the ones that have been interrupted from this connection to the earth. So with that, yeah, pass it over to Rua before we go into our closing. Oh, I think you're muted.
I was going to say, it was a comment that we can find our own songs. And you, of course, Natasha, just said a little bit, but of what or you said a lot of what I was going to say. I am a homesteader, and every day I go outside, I am filled with gratitude. And when I pick the tomato, or taste the raspberry or the blackberry. I know those of you in the West think we're crazy to grow blackberries because they take over out there, but not here. But that gratitude is my song. And that I am so moved by the songs that you have shared with us, Pam. So moved. I feel them. I understand them in my heart. And then I have my own song when I'm outside. And I think we can all do that too. So I'm going to take just a minute to share, not just to Natasha, but to everyone, a link to a participant survey that asks if you want to continue this conversation in some way. So this survey is for you and maybe connecting afterwards, and also for sharing with Transition US how you felt about this experience here. So please fill it out. You're also going to get not an email, but a connection to you asking you to do it again, you know, in case you don't grab it from here. So, and I'm not going to be the last words, Natasha and Pamar. I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and my soul, from the earth's heart as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rua, for being the bridge that made this happen. And thank you for hearing us and seeing us and being such a loving presence with us over the last few months leading up to this beautiful screening. Before I let Pom close it, I would just like to invite you to write in the chat a word or a phrase of any goodness that you might have received from our time together. Just like any sense of connection or clarity or courage or encouragement, just a little phrase to describe the goodness that you received. And maybe as Pom closes us out, we can send this all out into the world through the breeze, through the branches of the tree, through the run of the salmon, through the waves of the ocean, through the sound of the whale, so that it can reach all beings and help them on their journey. So may we send out permission and connectedness, harmony, tears and joy of appreciation, honesty, flow, dancing, heart song, love for the earth, the water, the sun, the trees, all beings. Prayer for the wood, dream time, deeper connection with the salmon.
Thank you all so much for being with us and being present and being here for this conversation and being so open to it. You know, I really don't feel like I'm at all an expert on this at all. I'm a dancer and I'm a singer for my people. That's where most of my learning comes from. And I'm very confident in my dancing and I where that comes from, but that's about it. And that's where I speak from. And that's what I've learned through a lot of our ways. Like we're lucky enough to have some of our elders, and I got to witness a lot when I was growing up. And I do, like, this is a 2021, you know, we're all on Zoom here now. And this is the day and age where the virtual reality is coming in more and more. And so us as Indigenous people and all people have to make a choice whether or not we're going to be present in this space or not, and how much of the sacred we're going to bring into this space or not, and or to go for it. And we have made the choice to go for it and to try to reach you all, try to reach us, try to, like, as if I'm so grounded, I'm trying to be grounded myself. And if I know a couple songs I can help out with, then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to try to help, because by doing that, it helps me. Because I always want to be more grounded, so I can be more receptive to what sacred is saying to me, so I can follow that. And thank you for the prayers for the wood for the roundhouse person. I appreciate that a lot. I'm just gonna sing a closing out song so that we can hear those frequencies and the vibrations of it, because they're not mine, you know. They're not from me and I didn't make it up. These are old songs, and they are in direct alignment with those things such as the water. And this is a song that we sing to going out when we're done and we're closed and our dances are done and we're taking away everything that's from the house, all the energies that are there, and we're taking it out. And we're closing that session off. And this is what that song is for.